As Aika pushed open the massive doors of the chamber, she was immediately enveloped in a cacophony of sights and sounds that assaulted her senses. The air was thick with the scent of exotic flowers, their sweet fragrance mingling with the musty odor of ancient stone. Stepping cautiously into the chamber, Aika found herself surrounded by a symphony of colors that danced and swirled across the walls. Shafts of sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting vibrant hues of red, blue, and green onto the polished marble floor. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, the very air shimmering with the heat haze of a midsummer's day. Aika reached out to touch one of the walls, expecting to feel the cool touch of stone beneath her fingertips, but her hand passed through empty air, the surface melting away like mist. As she ventured further into the chamber, Aika's footsteps echoed against the walls, each sound reverberating through the chamber like a distant memory. Shadows flitted at the edge of her vision, ethereal specters that beckoned her forward with ghostly whispers. The illusions grew more elaborate with each passing moment, twisting and warping the world around her into fantastical shapes and forms. Hallways stretched out before her, their dimensions shifting and changing with every step she took. Aika found herself lost in a maze of deception, her senses overwhelmed by the dizzying array of sights and sounds that assailed her at every turn. The spectral figures danced around her, their forms twisting and warping into fantastical shapes that seemed to defy reality. One of the figures, a shimmering apparition that resembled a graceful nymph, floated toward Aika, its voice a melodic whisper in the stillness of the chamber. "Sleep, dear child," it murmured, its words laced with honeyed sweetness. "You are safe here. Let us take care of you." Aika recoiled at the sound of the voice, her heart pounding in her chest as she instinctively reached for her dagger. With trembling hands, she lashed out at the figure, but her blade passed harmlessly through the ghostly form, leaving her grasping at empty air. The specter laughed, its laughter like the tinkling of wind chimes on a summer breeze. "You cannot harm us, little one," it teased, its form flickering in and out of existence before her eyes. "We are but illusions, mere shadows in the night." Frustration welled up inside Aika as she struggled to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding around her. She lunged forward, determined to catch the elusive figure, but it danced just out of reach, vanishing into a wisp of smoke before her eyes. "Stop," Aika cried out, her voice echoing against the walls of the chamber. "Leave me be. I must find my way through this maze." But the specter paid no heed to her pleas, its ethereal form shimmering in the dim light as it continued to taunt her with promises of safety and security. Desperation clawed at Aika's mind as she fought to push aside the doubts and fears that threatened to consume her. She knew these were not words of safety or kindness, she could feel the danger in the air with these things flying all around her. With a defiant glare, she turned her back on the specter, steeling herself for the challenges that lay ahead. "I will not be fooled by your tricks," she screamed, her voice ringing with determination. "I will find my way out of this place," she exclaimed, "no matter how much you try to trick me." As Aika's words echoed through the shifting corridors, the specters seemed to recoil, their ethereal forms flickering uncertainly in the dim light. Yet, even as she spoke, the maze twisted and turned around her, the specters weaving their illusions with greater fervor in an attempt to thwart her progress. Undeterred by their tricks, Aika pressed onward, her resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. Each step forward brought her closer to her goal, but the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. As Aika pressed onward, determined to overcome the maze's challenges, the specters intensified their efforts to dissuade her. Their whispers grew more urgent, their voices laced with desperation as they pleaded with her to turn back. "Surrender, Aika," they urged, their words echoing off the stone walls. "You cannot hope to defeat us. Your quest is futile, and your efforts in vain. Turn back now, before it's too late." But Aika refused to heed their warnings, her resolve unshaken by their pleas. With each step forward, she drew closer to her goal, her determination driving her onward even in the face of overwhelming odds. As she neared the heart of the maze, the specters' voices grew more insistent, their words tinged with desperation. "You must leave this place," they implored, their ethereal forms flickering uncertainly in the dim light. "There is nothing for you here but darkness and despair." Turn back now, before you die, dot. But Aika remained steadfast, her gaze fixed firmly ahead as she pressed onward. She knew that she could not falter now, not when she was so close to her goal. With every fiber of her being, she pushed aside the doubts and fears that threatened to consume her, focusing instead on the light that beckoned her forward. As she ventured deeper into the maze, her senses alert for any sign of danger, a sudden movement caught her eye. From the shadowy recesses of the corridor, a goblin emerged, its twisted form leering at her with malice in its eyes. As the goblin emerged from the shadows, Aika's heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. She tightened her grip on her dagger, ready to defend herself against the creature's onslaught. But even as she braced for the attack, doubt gnawed at the edges of her mind. Was this goblin real, or merely another illusion conjured by the specters to test her resolve? With cautious steps, Aika watched as the goblin advanced, its twisted features contorted in a sinister grin. Its jagged teeth gleamed in the dim light, casting eerie shadows across the stone walls of the corridor. Every instinct screamed at Aika to flee, to turn and run from this nightmarish apparition, but she refused to yield to her fear. Summoning her courage, Aika stood her ground, her eyes locked on the goblin as it drew closer. With a swift motion, she lunged forward, her dagger slicing through the air with deadly precision. The goblin let out a guttural cry of pain as her blade found its mark, but still, it pressed onward, its malice undiminished. Despite the goblin's tenacity, Aika's determination proved greater. With one final, decisive strike, she drove her dagger deep into the creature's heart, causing it to let out a ghastly wail, before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. As the life drained from the goblin's eyes, Aika couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over her. This creature, though formidable in its own right, was nothing compared to the horrifying monsters she had faced in the previous chambers. With a grim determination, she wiped the sweat from her brow and took a moment to catch her breath, steeling herself for whatever else the maze had in store. Noticing the goblin's short sword lying nearby, she reached down and retrieved it, feeling the weight of the weapon in her hand. It was crude and worn, yet it would serve as a more reliable weapon than her small dagger. Tucking it securely into her belt, Aika nodded to herself, grateful for the upgrade in her arsenal. With her new weapon at her side, Aika continued deeper into the maze, her resolve bolstered by the knowledge that she was now better equipped to face whatever challenges lay ahead.